Welcome to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection, the City of Crawfordsville's weekly podcast that comes out every Monday morning. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and I'm joined in the studio every week with Mayor Todd Barton to keep our community up to date on current events, city workings, and to hear from community members on a variety of topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection. I'm your host, Sarah Summer. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Mayor Todd Barton.
Hello.
Hello. And we've got Brandy Allen here with us.
Hello.
We know what that means.
It's general update.
That's right.
And this is my first one back. So these are
update
all
you.
new updates for me.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to learn this episode.
You missed a lot.
Yes. Well, before we jump in, Mayor, you've got a couple announcements.
I just want to remind everybody that Tuesday, November 5th is Election Day. You probably don't need reminded of that
Yes.
if you watch all the commercials and everything on TV. But it is a city holiday also. So we will not be here on Tuesday, November 5th, and there will be no trash collection on that day.
Correct.
There will be a double pickup on Wednesday, November 6th. Likewise, Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So we will be closed. It'll be a holiday. Do want to remind people there'll be a parade downtown for Veterans Day on Monday the 11th at 10:30, and then the ceremony around 11-ish as part of the parade. And that'll be on Main Street, Marie Canine Plaza, and then up Green Street, I believe. So that'll be the area for the parade, just like last year. And despite those being city holidays,
Yeah.
the yard waste site will be open.
Yes.
So if you're trying to clean your yard up, if you're like us and you have that day and you're trying to get things done, yard waste site will be open those days.
Yes. Take your stuff out there before the snow falls.
Yes. And people ask, when does the yard waste site close? It really depends on the weather. So it's usually, December, somewhere in there.
Yes.
But
stay updated on our social media. We'll
Yep.
post it there, post it on our city website. And
when the weather tells us it's time to close, it's time to
yes.
close. So-
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right into things. We have made a pretty large announcement about Motocross of Nations coming to our community in 2025. And we did a whole episode on that.
We did a whole episode, very popular episode.
Yes. And we now have our website is live with all of the information. But what is Motocross of Nations and where are we at in the planning phases?
Yeah, I would refer people to the episode for sure. This is a really large event coming to our community first weekend in October of 2025. I decided to put it on the general update list so we can just kind of keep everybody up to date on it every month. Our committee has been meeting, and I feel like we're off to the races, so to speak.
Yes.
So things are going well. The committee's in place. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're organized, and I think everybody understands their piece of what needs to happen, and that's what it's about. We have to assign people to these various things to get everything covered. We are going to make some adjustments to the committee probably because there's things we realized that we didn't think about in the beginning. But it is started, it is underway, and like we said in the episode, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to be involved in the community. We're going to need everybody pulling together for this. So it will be unlike anything we've experienced in Crawfordsville, Montgomery County before. I assure you that.
Yes.
And it will hopefully be the best motocross of nations ever.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
So
we're a little competitive.
we are.
We have been seeing, people saying epic. Like this is going to be the
Epic.
greatest ever.
Yes,
We can't wait.
Yeah.
We like those positive messages.
Yeah, we're gonna this community will hit it out of the park. I have no doubt there. So yeah, that's where we're at in that process, and stay tuned.
Great. And our proposed animal feeding ordinance, where did we land on that?
I left it on here because I get asked about it, and everyone's like, "Whatever happened?" That just kind of disappeared. It didn't really disappear. If you recall, the ordinance as it was proposed was eventually just voted down because it needed to be reworked. And I asked the council just to get rid of it and let's start over because it was going to be too hard to fix. We have a couple of proposed ordinances in the pipeline that will address those issues of people feeding wild animals in the city. And then the second of those couple of ordinances addresses specifically the issue of feral cats. And I know those are different issues, but they're intertwined. because people feeding wild animals spills over into the wild cat or the feral cat issue. So I think we're getting pretty close. Where we're at now, those ordinances have been drafted. We've gotten really good feedback from AWL, the Animal Welfare League, and there's a group called Cats Limited that has worked on the feral cat issue. I've gotten really good feedback from them, so we're going to make some more adjustments to that. And then those ordinances spell out kind of a process moving forward, and we're just kind of tidying that up with those two groups as well. So what that means is probably after the first of the year, you'll see this come back to the council. And again, we're not trying to rush it. I want to take my time and get it right. So it just takes a little while because it goes to them for review, and then it's a few weeks before I get it back, and then it takes me a little time to get it back to them. And
Right.
so it's kind of a process, but it's not over and done with, and we understand there's still a problem in many of our neighborhoods, and we're working on a solution that I think is very workable and makes sense to everybody, I hope.
Great. And we are getting closer and closer to 2025.
Yeah.
So where's our budget at?
Yeah, it's at the state. How's that? It's we're done on our end. All of our work with departments is done, and the council has reviewed. The council's gone through their process with the budget. Now we send it off to what's called DLGF, Department of Local Government Finance. They review it and then tell us if our budget is okay. And what that means is they could come back and say, well, it's too big and you can't fund it, those kind of things. That's not happened to us, at least while I've been mayor. And I don't anticipate it happening this time. We know that our budget is well within our funding stream. So we'll have that approval back, hopefully by the end of the year. And that means when 2025 starts, we are operating under our new budget.
Awesome.
If we don't get it back, we're still operating under the old numbers.
Okay.
People ask that question. What if you don't get approval?
Yeah.
You operate under your old numbers.
Okay.
So that's where we're at in that process. And it looks like we're going to be good to go in 2025.
Wonderful. And Brandy, we've got two different grants that we are in the process of. We've got the 180 Makeover Grant and a 180 in Color Grant. Do you want to remind people what those are?
Sure. The 180 Makeover Grant is one of our Ready grants, one of the last Ready grants. We partnered with Masonic Cornerstone, and we're allowing them to do some electrical upgrades that will allow them to continue to rehabilitate and further develop that center there. They are just finishing up their bid docs, and so we're getting ready to put that out to bid. We anticipate having that out to bid, in the next month, and then we'll be able to award a bid, and they can get started on that work right after the first of the year. So that'll be an exciting project that'll allow them to continue. I know you've probably noticed that they've been fundraising for a while on improvements to that structure. So this will just put them further down that path and allow them to continue to rehabilitate and be able to use that facility in ways that they haven't been able to do in the past. The 180 in Color Grant is another portion of our Ready funding that we're trying to wrap up from Ready 1. And this was approved for a new mural to be downtown on one of the facades on Green Street. So it'll actually be the side of the building that's facing the parking area. And we put that out to bid. We put out a request for proposals and qualifications for artists. And we actually just received word that period closed this last weekend. And we have 117 artists to review.
Wow.
So we have a local committee that is made up of business owners and government, community foundation, several different representatives downtown. And so we will all be reviewing those applications and trying to get a choice made on which one of these artists that we use. And so we anticipate that would go to, I guess they'd start painting it next summer. So, and it should be a quick process, couple of weeks, but we have a lot of work to do in the meantime.
117 is quite a few.
That is a lot of interest.
Yes.
In doing a mural in Crawfordsville.
And these are people from all over the country. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. And Brickyard Nature Park.
Yes. So I'm sure people are aware this is the nature park that's on the north side of town off of Concord Road. That was anticipated originally to be done this summer. We had a little bit of delay with our contractor, but we were able to right the ship and get everything back on track. And actually, I just was out there this morning. So at the time that this is that this goes to air, we will have been officially complete and open for a few days. So I know there's been a lot of people using it. I've seen a ton of people posting on social media. There's already people taking family pictures back there. It's something that people are really excited about. It's very nice. So everything's up. We wanted all the signage to be in place so that it was safe, that people understood where they were at back there in that property, because there's 100 acres of nature trails. There's one path that's ADA accessible, so people can use that if you have a stroller or you may be in a wheelchair or something. And then there's also stone paths that you can walk or run on, and then there are dirt paths for mountain biking. So all kinds of things out there in that park. It's a really cool space with nice, safe parking now, and everybody that has been using it can legally use it now. It's open and ready to be used. So hopefully we can get a ribbon cutting sometime soon on that we were not expecting the delay. So it'll be a chillier celebration, but
people have loved that area forever and went back there and used it. And now it's official. It's a park. You can use it.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And we get asked about the name a lot. Why is it called the Brickyard Nature Park? It has nothing to do with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
That's where the Brickyard was located. That's where they made bricks in Crawfordsville, right there on that site. And you can still see remnants of that back there.
Wow.
So,
yeah, there's an overlook of the shale pit. And there's some signage out there that gives you a little bit of history of the site and the brick making process. So
the water feature that's in that park is what was dug out to get the clay for the bricks.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Hence the name.
That's awesome. And Lincoln Park.
Yes. So Lincoln Park was in the same situation, same contractor. We had quite a bit of delay, which was a little more noticeable. This is a park on Wabash Avenue that we were upgrading for basketball, pickleball. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but there's also the cornhole. There are concrete cornhole boards. So if you bring your own bags, you can also play that there. And so that has been finished and able to be used for a little while, but we are still waiting on some signage there. There's some signage that alludes to the history that happens in that or happened at that site. So we really want to recognize that and be able to educate people in the community. So we're just waiting on that. It's all technical details, but waiting on the framing for that signage to go in before we can call that one complete. But you can use it. So there's nice available parking there. And every time I drive by there, that's full of people playing basketball and pickleball. So getting a lot of good feedback on that one as well.
A lot of use in that park now.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Great. And Shorts Nature Park.
Yeah, that's going to be the nature park on the south side at basically 32 and 47, right along the Sugar Creek Trail. As you recall, Will Shorts donating some land there, 47 acres for a nature park. We keep it on the list so people know it's still going to happen. It's just been a capacity issue for us. So really think over the next few months, we'll really get serious about picking a design firm and getting that designed and hopefully to construction before too long. So we just had it in the queue, and now it's working its way towards the top. We wanted to get Brickyard out of the way and Lincoln and some of those other things. Brandy didn't need another project on the list.
We're getting there.
Yes.
We're getting there. We're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on
That's
it, and
right.
people need to stay tuned.
That's right. So that one's going to be awesome as well. So, I mean, having 3 nature parks in Crawfordsville is pretty phenomenal.
Right.
We already have Sugar Creek Nature Park. And so adding Brickyard and then Shorts will be on top of our neighborhood parks and Milligan Park and everything.
Yeah,
We
and
have a lot of park offerings.
all of our signage is
All matches.
It's almost complete
Yeah.
with that. It all matches with our new branding.
Yeah.
Fawn and I just talked about that. So
Yeah.
if people haven't seen that, go look at the signs. I mean, I think people will start to really realize what all the city has to offer because it all says Crawfordsville now.
Yeah.
You know, they match.
We've always had amazing parks. It was just kind of hard to understand how they all connected together because the signage was all different. So looks great.
Awesome. Well, speaking of signage, Brandy, your favorite topic is our wayfinding project.
Yeah, this is the project that never ends. We are still making progress, though, believe it or not. It's just all kind of behind the scenes. So I'm sure that people have noticed over the last year, we have had several of the signs installed that are on city streets, but we've been waiting to be able to install the signs that are on state highways because we have to have permission from NDOT to do that. That's been a really lengthy process to try to get that permit and be able to install those. We have received our final comments back, we think. We do have some meetings scheduled to review some of that information with them, so I don't have an installation date yet, but we will be able to start to install some of those signs that are on the state highways now. which are the more noticeable signs and the signs that welcome people to Crawfordsville. I know I've seen a lot of feedback on the green signs that are all peeling and kind of look bad at the entrances to our communities. And we have annexed property in several directions. And so those signs weren't really even at the city's edge anymore. So hopefully we'll be able to get those installed pretty soon. We are still working through that. We have to get our official agreement through and approved by NDOT and honestly several people within state government. So that may slow up a little bit because of the election and everything's changing since we'll be changing governors. And so those office workers tend to change as well. So I can't give an exact date, but things are still moving in the right direction. So we're working on it.
Yes. And our city paving updates for 2024.
Yes, and all of those were completed. We actually wrapped up the last one over fall break. Thankfully, they were able to come in and pave Chestnut Street in front of the school. The only thing left to do is that the street department has to get in and stripe Chestnut Street, but all of those are paved and complete, and they look really nice. So we're able to get that work completed this fall.
Chestnut's noticeably better.
Yes.
Danville Avenue is noticeably better. So a lot of good stuff this year.
Awesome. And our city street inventory, we're looking at some new technology for rating those streets.
Yeah, we were able to sign a contract and start working with a company called Violytics that will be assisting us in doing those. I don't know that a lot of people realize what really goes into all of the work to get city streets paved. And part of that is starting with, we have a street inventory and we have to go through each year and evaluate the condition of those streets and make decisions based on that. It's also required to be eligible for this grant funding that we use in order to complete this paving. So this process will make it so much easier. That takes a couple of people, 2 to 3 weeks to really be able to evaluate. And actually, I misspoke. We do that full evaluation every 2 years because of how long it takes. This software uses some interesting technology, AI, and things like that will allow us to complete it in probably a day, maybe two, with one person really quickly. And we can do that multiple times a year. So we can get a better check on how our roads are progressing, how any type of paving that we do, how that's holding up. We could use it for treatment and things like that. Like if they're pre-treating roads for snow, we can see how those methods are working. So it'll open up all kinds of just really ways to make our street department more efficient. We can run the routes and it'll create work orders for potholes and things like that. Wow. So that process should become more efficient. Whereas now we really kind of rely on complaints or where workers are. So just all kinds of ways that this program will make us more efficient and be able to serve the community better, I think.
It tells us where our signs are bad. It looks at the signs and says this one's peeling or it has a sticker on it, or
if there's a tree blocking a stop sign or something.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I know we had a call the other day. Somebody wanted a sign put up and somebody else said, well, there was a sign there already and now it's not there. Mm-hmm. This would tell us if that was the case.
Yeah.
This case, we used Google Street View.
Yes.
And it went back a few years and there it was, that sign was there. So why it disappeared, we don't know. But this will help us answer those questions all the time and make us more efficient.
That's awesome. And 231 north of downtown, there was an NDOT project that, definitely took some time. I know that was on a lot of people's minds, and we heard a lot about that. Where are we at with that project?
Yes. So unfortunately, that project didn't get completed. And between the time that we recorded and the last general update and the time that it aired, it had changed even between that time. So this is a state project. NDOT is working on this. But what happened, I believe, is that this year they put all of those out. They started to do the work and then discovered that there were some utility conflicts that they couldn't get resolved. And so basically they've decided that through the winter and because it was going to be an extended amount of time, they just pulled those barricades up. They're working to get plans in place from those utilities to move those whatever infrastructure it is. I'm not exactly positive. Once that happens, then they'll make a plan for when they actually can complete the work. So we anticipate that being next year. Hopefully the schedule and the timing will all align because we have some big things happening in our community next year that we would prefer that the work not be taking place during, which we've tried to communicate to them. But I think it's just, we really have to just wait and see. We're at their mercy. So they'll tell us when they can get that coordinated. And sometimes it can be tricky waiting on utilities to get things moved. So I'm not sure. We don't have a new timeline on that. They will update us when they can, and we'll share that information out when we get it. But right now the project's on hold, and I would anticipate nothing happening until at least the next construction season.
Okay. And Purple Heart Parkway, our extension project, you can see it. It's looking vastly different.
There's a road there and a trail next to the road. So that work continues. We did have a little bit of some delays this summer with permitting. There have been some further delays with utilities. We're still waiting on one utility to get out of the way, which has delayed us a little. And then a delay recently in getting the poles so that they can place those for the new stoplights and things like that. So that was originally anticipated to finish in October. The last estimate that I heard was by Thanksgiving, but that also depends on if we can actually get the utilities in there to get moved and get the poles in place when they arrive. So still anticipate finishing this construction season. As of now, the entrance to the north of Buffalo Wild Wings and that strip center is still closed while they complete that concrete work on the north side, and then the rest of that project will kind of be played by ear depending on when we get things moved and get out of the way. I'm not sure if there will be a partial opening or what they'll have to do. If there's some work they could open the road and come back for, but still at this time anticipate completing that this year.
That's awesome. And I know we've talked about this before. This is still lightning speed for building a road.
It is. Compare it to Skank Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with the delays that we have. I mean, there have still been delays, and it's still going to complete.
And because we used largely local funding, and then we put in some ready money. But yeah, that's what allowed us to do that. So
yeah, I know. It's just one day I drove past and thought, wow, that moved quickly.
But it's imperative. We hear about all the retail things people want and the housing and everything else. This road is the linchpin for a lot of those projects.
Yeah. All right. 231 South, the sewer extension project.
Yeah, there's actually two kind of related sewer projects there, but we have extended sewer south, basically all the way to the Arbor Homes Hawkview subdivision. And then also getting the sewer started down Purple Heart Parkway as well. So two related projects there. Those were supposed to wrap this fall as well. I don't think they're officially wrapped up yet, but should be winding down. And then there's always, they have to test everything and be able to prove that everything's good before we put it online. But those projects are both wrapping up. So pretty soon, I think we'll see the construction equipment move from there to some other locations that you'll probably hear about later in the update.
Awesome. Southside Corridor study with the county.
Yes. So tied to this project with Purple Heart. So we already have Purple Heart from 47 to 231. We're taking it from 231 to Ladoga Road. Montgomery County, last few years did a project where they created Comfort Drive from New Core Road, back to the west. So that has us thinking, like, how does all this match up and line up? And what we're doing is a study to look at all that growth on the south side and plan for the future. How would all these roads align, and where can development happen, and how do we make this all make sense? And so we're trying to plan for growth. I will say, historically in this community that didn't happen. And so you have this hodgepodge, where none of the streets line up, none of the developments line up. Everybody just did their own thing. So we're trying to prevent that. So we're doing this joint study, this alignment study with the county that's looking at all that area, all the way from New Core Road, all the way over to 47, and all the way really up to 32, because we have Skank Road's going to be realigned with 32. So how does all that match up, and what does that mean for future development? And how do we incorporate utilities into all that while we're doing that? So that study is underway, and that's a joint city-county study. I think will give us a good roadmap for the future. So that's what we're doing there.
Wonderful. And sewer collection system improvements at the high school lift station.
Yeah, so we are replacing the sewer lift station on the south side. It's called the high school lift station because it was put in when the high school was built. We say the new high school, but that's been a long time ago now. But it hasn't kept pace with growth on the south side, obviously, so we need to upgrade that. As part of doing that, we're moving it from the north side of 47 to the south side. So that has been bid.
It has, and we've awarded that, so that work could start. That was one of the projects I was referencing, that equipment may be moving there pretty soon.
Yeah, anytime probably you'll see them start work on that. So you'll see a lot of digging around 47 and 32 in that area as they build the new lift station on the south side and relocate it or take the one out on the north side. But that will really help us with all the growth that we are currently experiencing and expect in the future on the south side of Crawfordsville. That lift station is not adequate, the current one. As part of that project, we have looked at, because we have to create an access road to the lift station so they can get trucks in there to replace pumps and do maintenance and stuff. We've looked at extending that to create a trail to Crawfordsville High School for pedestrians. We're not quite there on the trail, so we're going to go ahead with the lift station, and then we'll figure out the trail piece later. It gets very complicated when you go to put the trail in. So we've been in talks with NDOT about that. We're not close to figuring that out yet. So we don't want to hold up the lift station waiting on it. We're going to do the lift station, and we'll come back and figure out the trail piece later.
Perfect. And we touched a little bit about Skank Road, but what is the timeline of that? We had initially moved it back. Where are we standing with Skank Road now?
Really still the same. There's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, but not anything that anyone's seeing. We had, I think at the last general update, there were 3 parcels that we still needed to acquire for right-of-way so that we could turn in those final designs for the construction and be ready to bid that out. In the last month, we have taken care of 2 of those. So we really just have 1 parcel still outstanding that we have to get through, and then they'll be able to turn in the final design plans and be ready to put that out to bid next July. So still on track as far as the timeline's concerned. We're just working through all that stuff. It's just no one's really going to see anything happen very soon. And
Right.
even once we bid it out next year, I'm not sure exactly what that timeline looks like as we're coming into sort of the last half of a construction season. So this is one of those projects that, because of the funding source, it requires certain things on a certain timeline. And so it just delays things a little. They move a little slower.
Okay. And before I left, the Market Street Railroad crossing, we were still waiting on the grant application. And I think there's some good news, right?
We've applied.
Awesome.
It's submitted, and they've accepted our application. Doesn't mean that we're going to award it,
Right.
but they've accepted it. So we have applied through the Federal Railroad Administration for a planning grant to address the crossing at Market Street, which is also 3 state highways. And our application this time was based on data. So we've been studying that crossing for years. We know how many blockages occur. We know how many trains a day. We know all those kinds of things. And then we can calculate the economic impact to our community and the environmental impact based on, a semi sitting there idling for an hour waiting on a train. So we put all that together. We've applied. We won't know for a while. And I suspect it'll be even longer than they say, knowing how the federal grants work. And there's an election in there too. So, but we're optimistic that we will get funding. And what that grant would pay for is creating a solution, which I think we all conclude will be an overpass, creating a solution, and then all the design for that up to construction. So if we're awarded, this is a very lengthy process. This doesn't happen overnight. To play out, you're talking years. But that being said, I think at some point we have to come to terms with that rail crossing issue in our community. You're not going to change the behavior or the practices of railroads. That's it. That they're going to do what they do, and people can get angry and they can send me hateful messages all they want. It's not going to change what the railroad does. And so we have to deal with it and go around it and find a solution. So that's what we're doing. We've dealt with this a long time in our community. We've not dealt with it forever. I mean, people, I think, don't understand. This has only been going on since the merger of CSX and Conrail.
Okay.
That's when this all started. Before that, we had trains, but they didn't stop. So that's where this really started. But we're years into it, and we have to come to terms with it and go on. We've done fairly well recently. However, Halloween, we had a train stop for several hours, and it was kind of a mess. Seems to be a Halloween tradition.
Right.
I don't know. It was kind of a mess. And again, I'm baffled by this when it happens, the reaction of the community. I mean, I'm baffled by it. People just lose their minds. It's not the end of the world, folks. You're going to have to go around. Traffic's going to be bad. We're working on a solution. We've talked about this at length. I started to say ad nauseum. I shouldn't say that, but we've talked about this so much. But when it happens, people act like nothing has ever been done and there's no answers here. And the number one feedback we get is that the city needs to go down there and arrest the train crew or make them move it. And you cannot do either one of those things, right? It is not illegal for them to block a crossing. There was a law in Indiana. It's been struck down by the Indiana Supreme Court. So there is literally nothing the city can do. Now, we can talk to them and urge them and try to get them to move, but legally there's nothing we can do. We can't interfere with interstate commerce. So
Interesting.
that's where people get really frustrated. But the good news is the grant is submitted. We're waiting to hear if we're funded or not, and then we'll go from there.
Well, we're also looking at some different technology to
We
hopefully
are.
help with
We
traffic
are. It's not going to
flow.
solve the problem, but it, like I said, if we get this grant, it'll take years. So, there's new technology out there that will allow us to, basically what it does is it senses when there's a train coming or there's a train blocking that crossing. And then we would have information displayed on these roads that would warn people. So, for example, if there's a train blocking, you're coming north on 231, you would be alerted before Wabash Avenue that's
Right.
closed, and locals would know I need to turn down Wabash,
Yep.
go around, right? It's not so much going to help the out-of-town traffic because they're still going to be confused, and the semis are really the problem.
Yeah.
They can't maneuver around the side streets. So that being said, I do think it would help us tremendously if we had that technology. Technology's there. It's proven in other cities. We're looking at it right now. I think we'll be adopting that and implementing that probably in 25.
Okay.
So stay tuned for all that. It's not the ultimate solution. I get it, but I think it'll help us get by for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is interesting that the whole time we were collecting data for our application, we had relatively good luck with the train. And then as soon as we stop
Yeah,
and
we
submit
literally
the
just shut the
application-
data collection off, and this big blockage happened. So I know I sound frustrated with that issue. I get it, but it is very frustrating when you see the community's reaction time and time again. I'm like, we have gone through this
Right.
over and over. People, you have to understand what's happening here. So yeah, when you're in the car, it's frustrating. I know. And please, when that happens, don't get worked up and go, flying through our neighborhoods,
Right.
because a lot of the calls we get are upset residents because someone's angry and then they floor it and go down a residential street. You never know when a kid's going to step out, just stay calm.
Yeah.
So we had that blockage. Is interested. We had that blockage on Halloween, and we had some business people here who came from New York City. So it's interesting to hear their take on our traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that
I
bad.
was going to say, but it's nothing.
It's not that bad, folks. It's frustrating. I know it is, but we are working on a short-term and a long-term solution for that. It's a very complex problem.
Awesome. Well, not awesome. Awesome that we're working on it.
It'll be awesome if we never have to deal with it again.
Yes.
That's going to be a while.
Our sidewalk program, we have talked about this for quite a while, and we are just waiting on a couple pieces for funding to finally roll it out officially.
Yeah, so we've adopted the program, and we have funding identified. There's some other pieces coming out of that funding. One of those being sidewalks with related to the Ben-Hur project, some things like that. So we wanted to nail down those numbers first. Of course, we had an issue getting contractors. I think we have that sorted out. So really, early 25, we'll be able, I think, to ramp this up and get going with it. And what we're talking about here is a program to increase the city's participation in sidewalk replacement. Sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner. Well, that can be a lot. So this will increase how much the city contributes, and the property owner still has some skin in the game.
Right.
And hopefully we can move the needle and start getting more and more sidewalks replaced.
Yeah. And once we have all the official details, we will detail out all the information,
Yeah.
the process,
Yeah.
everything on our city website. And we'll make notice on social media as well, so people are aware. And then, we can start that process.
Yeah, and I think the good thing, at least for me, thinking through this one, we've identified a way to get it started. We have some seed money there. I think we have really kind of identified more of a long-term way to make this happen as well. So that's not always the case. Like, hey, we have some funding, we're going to try it, but we're not sure how to sustain it. I think we've identified a way to kind of get there in this case. So I've been talking to the city council about that. That's something they'll consider probably the second quarter of 25, somewhere in there.
Okay. And what is our timeline on the Shelley Drain project?
Yeah, so we have actually put that to bid and awarded that project. So we're just working on the details to get that started. It's really something that's easier done in the typical construction season, but if we have a mild winter, we may be able to get started on that a little quicker. what we plan to do as far as next steps is getting everything in line and having a small meeting with those neighboring residents just to let them know about what work is going to be taking place. So this is drainage work that's happening on the east side of town, but it'll be a little intrusive in a neighborhood over there. They will have to, go through some right of way that's through people's yards and things like that. So we just want to make sure that everyone really understands the project before they get started, and we'll have a resource out there in the neighborhood for them to come to with concerns and be able to talk with about the project. So we're just kind of lining up all that behind the scenes stuff, and then it just depends. The start date kind of depends on weather this winter.
But wow, to get rid of that issue,
right?
Yeah,
that's been an issue for decades in this community. So
at no cost to the property owners, which it was originally going to be. So.
Yes, it was going to be assessed to the property owners in that area. So yeah, it's going to be nice to get that one done.
Yes. And our Sugar Creek Erosion Grant, phase 1 progress, and what about phase 2?
Yeah, so this is another one that we have talked about for a long time and it extended out much longer than we originally anticipated. However, just since the last general update, all of the homes that we had acquired have been torn down in phase 1. So we're just working through a closeout right now. We just need to, have those invoices paid and get that sent off and be able to be reimbursed for that. And we're not wasting any time. Phase 2 will be submitted in the pre-application period in mid-November. So we are already working on submitting the next phase. Once we get through that, then we'll also have, probably shortly after that, we'll have some interaction with the neighbors there and bring everybody up to speed, let them know so that they understand the timeline, what that application process looks like. What we've learned is we need to plan for extra time because depending on the situation, it tends to last a little longer than what they initially anticipate. So we just want to make sure that everyone knows that something is happening, but it just moves very slowly. And there's help on the way, hopefully, for the rest of the, we're hoping for the remaining properties that will all be affected by this erosion. So hopefully over the next couple of years, we can get that taken care of. For anyone that wants to participate, it's a voluntary program, but we were able to find a funding source that can help these property owners get out from underneath those properties that really have been affected by this situation.
One of those houses that was torn down was literally within a few feet at best of falling into the creek.
Wow.
Yeah.
They did an awesome job getting those down safely, getting everything repaired. And now we just have to stay away and let nature do its thing, unfortunately.
The creek has always been moving and it will continue to move. But thanks to this, study and geology reports, we understand what's happening and what houses are in harm's way. So
right.
It's a chance to make those homeowners, those property owners whole if they choose. It's the voluntary program. I know we've said that over and over, but if you think about this, if you bought your home, you've been paying on it your whole life, and now all of a sudden it's going to fall in the creek and it's worth nothing. That's devastating. Yeah. So that's why we're trying to help those folks.
And Sugar Creek access for emergency services.
Yeah, I put this on here just to make people aware. It's in design right now and DNR approval, basically creating a small boat ramp for emergency responders into Sugar Creek. There are times that they need to get their small boats into the creek for water rescues. They have somebody injured somewhere or something like that. This will be in the area of the Sugar Creek Nature Park and the US 231 bridge. So probably be largely unnoticeable to people, but there will be this access. And I know we get questions like, is that really necessary with Sugar Creek? I can walk across it. The thing about Sugar Creek is it varies greatly. So it can be everything from a little trickle that you can walk across to a absolute raging river. Right. And so the responders here are equipped to deal with those various stages of that creek. And sometimes they need to be able to get boats and watercraft into the water. So this will allow them to do that. We really don't have anything like that on the creek in this area. So this will be a huge safety improvement. And now that the dam is out, they can go either direction with that stuff, where before we were always kind of limited in how we did that. So that's in design and probably go to construction in the spring, but it'll be a very small project.
Okay. And our housing development with Arbor Homes, the View neighborhood.
Yeah, it's under construction and they've been putting in water and sewer, and they're telling us they're going to pave the streets pretty soon. So you'll start to see houses pop up out there before long.
It's happening.
It's happening. Yeah, that was the big rumor.
Yeah, believe it or not,
that was
happening.
The one project that we constantly heard feedback that this is dead. It's not going to happen. Folks drive out there. It's happening.
Yeah.
Been a lot of dirt moving out there.
Yes.
So, and that will be a pretty substantial addition to Crawfordsville, which we desperately need. We talk about the jobs that are open, the opportunity. The housing market is very tight. We constantly hear of people, getting a job here and they can't find a place to live.
Right.
We have to change that.
Absolutely.
And this is, I better say this because I get asked about this. This is the ripple effect, right? So
right.
I get feedback that, well, not everybody can afford those homes at those prices. We understand that, but as people move up in the market, it opens up houses at lower price points.
Right.
And we've done extensive studies of housing in this community. So we know what those numbers look like, how many people are looking to move up, how many people are looking to enter the market, all those kind of things.
It could be the opposite too. Some people might be looking to downsize,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it opens up some larger homes in our
Yes,
community
and it
as
could
well.
open up those as well. So you cause a shift in the market there,
Yeah.
which we need.
Well, speaking of housing, there is a Thrive housing program that we are participating in with the county.
We are, and we recently had some public meetings about that. And it's just a way the city and the county have come together, and we're hoping to push some ready funding into that way to incentivize smaller housing projects. Okay. And so when we talk about something like what's happening with Arbor, that's a very large development. There are mechanisms we can use, such as TIF and things like that, to help that happen that don't work. If you've got along a county road where you got 6 lots, you want to put 6 houses, you can't put incentives in it because the numbers don't work. Or in our case, in the city, there may be an area where we have 4 houses in a row that are maybe not occupied, that could be torn down and new housing stock built. The incentives don't work, but yet you still have a gap you need to figure out. So this program will help us figure that out in many cases. And maybe there's a smaller development where they just need some help. You can put some funding in there to kind of boost them and get it going. So this program has been used successfully in some other counties, and we're going to bring it here to really get more housing, smaller developers on board and moving, just bridge that gap. Sometimes they don't do a project, but the gap's really pretty small. And if we can just push it over the hump, we can get more housing built. So that's what we're trying to do there.
And we also have some market rate apartments coming to our community that's going to help even further.
Well, the first one has been her building.
Can you believe it's happening?
One of these days, we're going to not even mention that in a podcast.
We won't even have to talk about
it. It's coming soon.
Yeah, well, the day we're recording, I actually had trouble getting back. I came from a meeting out of town, and half the Water Street's closed with a crane putting things on the roof. So I'm like, that's pretty exciting. I want to take a picture and send it to people. So, so it will be done probably second quarter of 25, and that'll be occupied. Those will be market rate apartments. Can't wait for that ribbon cutting and for people to get in there and tour it. It's going to be a really cool project. And then, of course, there's been around 400 apartments proposed on the south side that would be market rate. And that's in the planning stages as well. And they'll be coming back with their plans before long. So the ones on the south side, Purple Heart obviously is very important to that. Right. So Brandy needs to get Purple Heart done. Then we can get the rest of it going.
You personally.
So, that's right. It's your responsibility. So market rate apartments are important because that's where we get our young professionals to come in and live in our community. And maybe older people want to downsize, but we just have not had enough of those.
I'm sure we've talked about this before, but can you remind people what market rate means?
Yeah, exactly that. It's going for whatever the market will support. It's not subsidized. Right. And so, let's say a young professional comes into the community and they look at one of our existing complexes. If it's subsidized, they probably make too much and they can't live there. And so they have to go elsewhere to find an apartment. So these will not be in that situation. They will be what we call market rate.
Great. And our retail recruitment activities, we say that retail follows rooftops, and we have rooftops
We're
coming.
Adding rooftops. And we've been trying to jumpstart that and accelerate that, and we've taken a lot of steps. We talked about the retail gaps analysis and all those things. What I always tell everybody is the retail piece is so different than economic development, and it really does kind of ebb and flow. And so we'll see a lot of activity behind the scenes, and then it'll get silent for months. And you're thinking, okay, what's happened? And we're in one of those cycles now where there's a ton of activity behind the scenes. Right. So I think we're getting closer to some things happening. I feel like we are. I've said all along, we have to get Purple Heart Parkway done, and the interest rate question has to be settled. And both of those things are happening. So I think, I'll just tell you this: the retail landscape on the south side will look a lot different moving forward pretty soon. So within, by 25, we'll start to see some of these announcements happen, I think, and some things start to move forward there. So a lot of interest in our market. Groceries the big thing.
Yeah.
And clothing and all those kind of things. I think you're going to see some activity there. So
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. All these under construction.
Yes.
We not really did a formal press release. They didn't want to do that, but
We were ready.
It's not a secret.
Yes.
I mean, the sign's up and they're under construction. So, and I know I'm going to be asked, why is it on the south side? And they all want to be within that hub where the other retailers are at.
Right.
I communicated with the group the other day, and I tried to get them to understand, because I've been talking to retailers. They don't look at our community in terms of east side, south side. They look at Crawfordsville as a market, right? So they're not looking at those. They don't break it down that fine.
Right.
And so it's tough when people say, we need a grocery store on the east side. Well, I understand that's convenient, but to the retailer, they're looking and saying, we've got to be.
Where are the people at?
Where are the people? Where are the shoppers?
Right.
Not just in Crawfordsville coming from, but the regional draw.
Yeah.
Where are they coming? Where are they going? So there's a science behind all of it. I'm not saying I always agree with it. I understand, but that's the reality within which we work.
Well, I think that's something too, Mayor. We see on social media. Doesn't the mayor know this? You do recognize that, but you're not telling retailers where to locate.
I wish I could.
Right. You are not telling people where to go.
The people who are investing the millions of dollars are going to make the decision.
Yeah.
And they're going to put their research into it. We can nudge them. We can try. We can do all those things. And we do.
Right.
Absolutely, we do. But at the end of the day, it's their research and their data that they rely on.
Yeah. And you don't get to just choose what comes to our community.
Oh, I wish.
Right.
We don't really want him to have that much power.
Right.
Oh, I wish. Yeah, it's funny because I see stuff about, I'll pick on Fazoli's. That's the thing everybody laughs about.
Fazoli's.
The mayor's blocking Fazoli's. I'm like, well, what they don't know is anytime I'm out of town, I've probably eaten at a Fazoli's. So I'm a pretty big fan. I don't think I'd be blocking them from coming to Crawfordsville. Now, if they were here, I'd probably get tired of it.
Yes.
Because I'd probably overdo it. But yeah, it just doesn't work that way. But like you said, retail follows rooftops. We're adding rooftops. We have the market data. And I think we're every day getting a little wiser about how retail makes decisions. And so we're gonna get there. There's gonna be some more offerings coming forward.
Awesome.
And there are probably more people poking around than there ever have been in my time here.
Yes,
so
for sure.
There's interest. We just have to.
For sure. And I don't want to discourage the other sides of town. There is a lot of interest in the east side right now too. So I'm not, and I think Shelley Drain helps us there. It wasn't the only factor, but it is a big factor. Having that question settled gives people the comfort to build there. They're not going to have the drainage issues, right? And so you're going to see some things on the east side happen for sure. And maybe some things on the north side. Not sure about west. It's just, there's not a lot of pieces there in place yet, but definitely in those other areas you will.
That's awesome. And this flows right into our economic development activity. We've had a lot of announcements in the last year and more always coming.
Yeah, and all those projects we've announced, they're all, reaching the point where we're having groundbreakings. We had the groundbreaking for Weaver popcorn hybrids recently. We will have a groundbreaking for Ira whiskey coming up and a groundbreaking for the Fairfield Inn coming up. So all those projects are, we announce them and then it takes a little while to go through the process where they're actually ready to start.
And that's why people think it's not happening.
Right. Yeah.
When we announce it, it's not.
We're not ready to. And it varies depending on the project. Yeah. Sometimes some of these are kind of complicated, and so they can't put shovels in the ground until they have all their T's crossed and I's dotted. So all those things are moving forward. They're all happening. Great projects, and we do have other stuff in the works. Of course, we've had some expansions. If you get a chance, look at the expansion at Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
That is huge. It's major. So that's moving forward. Out in the county, you drive out by Nucor Steel. If you've not done that, the cranes are up and there's steel moving and it's a lot happening on that front, a lot of good economic development activity. Things have slowed a little bit on the lead side. It's the end of the year, it's election, all those things kind of come into play, but we're doing very well and we're sticking to our strategy to remain diversified.
Right.
A lot of different types of industry. and at least from the city's perspective, to really focus on our existing industry and help them grow. So things are going very well on the economic development side.
Awesome. And what about our Crawfordsville Career Academy?
Yeah, we're in the process of transitioning what has been identified as the Ivy Tech facility in the Commerce Park. Ivy Tech is still there. They're occupying about half the building, and then the other half is occupied by our career tech ed programs. There will be a program for apprenticeships coming up. Cheryl's working on that. And so all that stuff will be in the building, and we're going to create this hub of, how do we prepare these students, I guess, for the careers of the future? And every community is trying to figure that out right now because the state is changing high school graduation requirements, and we all have shortages of, some of these technical fields, and everybody's kind of struggling like we don't have the bricks and mortar place to do this. We do.
Yeah.
So the timing was perfect. If you drive by there now, you'll see more cars in that parking lot than I think you've ever seen. And
That's awesome.
It's cool to go out there. You see all these students coming and going. So we're trying to prepare those high school students, and then we'll transition into adults as well, but help them for, prepare for careers. So our career tech ed programs are very good. They've just been kind of scattered all over the place, and we're kind of starting to centralize that.
Awesome.
Yep.
And, we've talked about our economic development activities being strong and trying to support our industry that we already have. That happens with these annual business visits.
It does. Yeah. So we go visit our industry every year. We're close to wrapping up this year.
I don't even think we should say wrapping up anymore because we're basically doing it year round.
We do take a month and a half, 2 months off, but that's about it. But yeah, we've been going at it strongly, and they have been really good this year.
Great.
And some good stuff has come of those, some growth projects, some expansions. Sometimes they get through those discussions, they get into the career tech ed pipeline, like, hey, we have a need for this particular skill set. And then when, Cheryl find a way to connect them to the schools and to students. And so a lot of good stuff comes from those visits. Corporate visit wise, we normally do those as well. Did a couple of those where the corporate leaders came to Crawfordsville. I didn't really do any this year where I went to them. So we'll probably be doing some of those next year. Those kind of run in cycles as well, but same conversation happens there. And that's how we see the growth that we've seen. We've seen Penguin Random House grow. We've seen CSI grow. We've seen International Paper grow. I've seen a lot of growth in all these industries.
And I think the cool thing there is we've seen how successful they can be. And so we're not just meeting with our largest employers anymore. We've gone down and started meeting with some of our smaller companies, and we can make an even bigger difference for some of them. Right. And so we're even seeing expansions and investment happening in those smaller businesses that they just aren't aware of the tools that we can offer. So
huge success story there with Midwest Bale Ties. I mean, that's a smaller, locally grown company. And when we bring our resources to the table with what they're trying to do and grow their business, it's very powerful for them. Yeah. And that's an exciting one. That's one that's been fun to watch, and it will continue to be that way, I think, moving forward.
Awesome. And our Montgomery County Early Learning Center, it's under construction. You can see things are really moving along now. They've got, it looks like, some playground equipment out.
Are you watching that one closely?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
A vested interest there.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It appears that everything, for the most part, everything's moving forward on schedule. You always have issues with construction, but they're working through all of those. And I think the same timeline exists. They still plan to, get that building under their control shortly after the first of the year, I think. And then they'll be able to start getting in there and preparing the building with the company that will be operating it and training. I think you'll start to see a lot more coming out as they get their director out in the public and are able to start a little heavier recruiting and things like that. But as far as I know, everything seems to be going very well with that project. And it's a much needed project that we're all very anxiously awaiting.
It's pretty cool because people are like, I can see it now. We talk about something and it's kind of abstract and it will really happen. Right there it is, folks, So very cool.
It's a highly visible area too. So people really see it.
It looks incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what about the youth council?
Something we've not talked about in years. We had a youth council and we were trying to figure out how to make that work. And we were trying to get our feet under us. How do we engage our high school students, in thinking about the future of the community? And then this thing called a pandemic happened.
Weird.
And it just evaporated. It was gone. And so we're trying to bring that back. We've brought in an outside consultant to help us with that process, and they've had a couple of meetings. I know Brandy's been to those meetings. I've not been able to work it out, so you might want to update people where they're at. But
it's really cool to see they're still kind of getting organized, but we have students coming from all 3 of our schools in Montgomery County, coming together, kind of identifying issues, organizing themselves. I think it's interesting. It's pretty beneficial because I think, one, they'll learn a little about how government works and how to make things happen. But maybe more importantly, we learn what's important to them, and we're able to help focus. I think a lot of things, when I hear them talk about their concerns, I think there's a lot of those things that we're already working on, but they just aren't plugged in the same ways that we're plugged in. So we have to figure out how to communicate that message. Might be something that we get to pull you into as well. But then just hearing their concerns from their perspective and the things that are important to them, as we talk about all these things and ways that we're trying to grow our community, we want them to want to be here and want to come back. So it's important to get them involved in the process, make them feel like they're a part of it, hear their concerns. So I think that'll be a really powerful group once we get them up and going and organized, and it'll be cool to watch.
What I'm hearing is we need to get on TikTok, Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave
YouTube,
that up to
TikTok.
you.
That's how the youth
I know.
are absorbing information and consuming
I'll ask
content.
people, where did you learn? Where'd you hear that? TikTok. I'm like, oh, okay.
It is funny, though, to hear some of the things that they're talking about. They want wayfinding. We're working on it. They want
That's crazy.
parks and things like that. We're working on it. They want activities to do, but I think they just don't even realize all the things that are going on in our community already. So a lot of it is just communication.
We communication is tough. I mean, if you put stuff in newspapers, they're not going to see that.
Right.
And
Or
I
on
don't know,
Facebook.
the podcast, or Facebook, we think Facebook, well, they're not going to see that. And so how do we get communication to all the different generations in our community who all consume it in a different way?
Yeah.
We still have a lot of people reading newspapers. We still have a lot of people use Facebook. Young people don't use either one of those things.
No, we've got TikTok, and we've talked about revamping our YouTube channel too.
Yes,
and
we are.
I think that's, a way that we can look to reach some of those folks too, and figure out ways that it's not a long, lengthy YouTube video. They want short content, short snippets of things, but
I like
it
short
meaningful.
too. I like short to the point. I think the thing about the Youth Council, every one of these projects we're talking about, they're going to be affected by this more so than any of us, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be in this community, I hope, much longer. And so these parks we're building today and the way we're designing things, they're going to live with that a long time, so we need some input there. That's like Brandy, that's a big thing I've noticed is just, they'll say like, we should be doing these things in a community, and we are, they just don't know. So how do we increase that awareness?
Okay. And Ready 2.0, we are aligned with the Greater Lafayette region. I think you were there this morning.
I was, yes. So things are moving forward. We put together our 2.0 plan. The catch is that you have to expend 65% of your Ready 1 funds before you can spend Ready 2 funds. So we are a little bit stuck. It's fun though, because we've been in single digits on percentage. It's not good. This region's been in last place, primarily because there were 2 very large projects with Purdue that just have languished and not gone forward. However, they think by next week we will be at 26%.
Wow.
That's a big jump. So, and our goal is sometime, by spring, we should hit that 65. However, the good news is for a brief time, the state was allowing us to get projects for Ready 2 pre-approved. And so there were a few in the region that were pre-approved. There were a few in Lafayette. There's one in Montgomery County that made the list and got pre-approved, and that is shifting some Ready 2 money to assist with getting water down to Nucor Steel. And so that was a project that Montgomery County had submitted, and that did get pre-approval. So that will be ready and no pun intended, in the pipeline. When we do hit that 65% mark, that project can go.
Awesome.
The other thing we're looking at doing with Ready 2 money is, basically supporting infrastructure for housing.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal of Ready anyway, is to grow the population of Indiana. So stay tuned on Ready 2, but that's where we're at in the process. It is moving forward, and I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think the region is pretty focused on getting to that 65% mark and helping Purdue University get to that 65% mark.
Yes.
How's that?
And what about the Lilly Endowment funding with Ready 2.0?
So in addition to the Ready 2.0 funding, Lilly has put some money in there. I say some money, a massive amount of money in there to assist with blight elimination and the arts in the communities around the state. We've prepared an application for that, both the city and Wabash College jointly. It did not make the pre-approval list, and they gave us some feedback. So actually, just earlier today, had a conversation with Tom Klein at the county and with President Feller at Wabash about the feedback we got. So we're going to regroup here pretty soon. We weren't off by much, so there's a few things we can tweak in there, a couple of things we can add, and I think we'll be able to get that. We have to wait 6 months before we can apply again, so it'll be a little bit, but that'll give us time to kind of strengthen that and bolster that application, and then we'll move that forward. And what that application was centered around was, how do we improve the corridor between the college campus and the downtown and improve the appearance of it, the experience of it, and the housing stock. So we were really focused on that, but we'll be submitting that, not for Ready funding, but for the Lilly funding in the coming months.
Okay. And our landfill cap replacement, phase 2.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier in the year. So last year we did a lot of work where we were replacing the cap over the old landfill. So we have a landfill at the end of Whitlock Avenue that was operated by the city and the county. It was closed in the mid-1980s. Had sat there, no maintenance for decades. And that cap, the dirt over that landfill, starts to erode. And you can see this in the satellite images. And you run the risk of rainwater getting down in there, going through what's in the landfill and then pushing out, into the streams, and Sugar Creek's right there. So we've known for a few years we need to really start working on replacing that and restoring that. And we did a lot of that last year. The bulk of it happened last year. So the bulk of it's been done. We just still had a few areas we wanted to strengthen, and some of the drainage around the periphery of the old landfill. We plan to do that this year to get it wrapped up. However, our source of dirt to come into the site didn't materialize. So we had to kind of step back and rethink it. We're working on that. As soon as we get the donor dirt, if you will, we'll move forward. I think we've got a plan identified, so it probably will get moved to 26. This is a problem that developed over decades, so if we move back a season, we're okay. But the bulk of the work has been done. There are just some areas we want to shore up. So you'll hear more about that probably next year.
Okay. And EPA Brownfields Grant 2.0.
Yes, so I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but just as a refresher, this is a grant that we were awarded in order to do a little bit more digging and studying on sites around the community that may be considered brownfield. So this is basically a property that's abandoned or that may have a building on it that we're not sure. We think there may be some environmental concerns or something, and oftentimes that makes a property slow to move. So it'll either sit vacant or not be able to be sold. And so this allows us to go into those properties, identify that area, and then do some studying. So we may do a phase 1 environmental study, see if there actually are issues. Sometimes there aren't. Sometimes it's just a perception. Or identify what the issues are and then possibly have a plan to either do further studying to put together a plan or remediate the issue. So we're able to use these funds and then get properties back on the tax rolls oftentimes. We've already seen that from our first round in being able to try to dispose of some of those properties. Right. And so we're just now getting started on that. This is a process. It takes, it's another process that involves federal funds and things like that. So it takes a little while to move. We have to go through a larger process. So we have an agreement now so that we can start to move forward. So our next step is to put that project out to bid and get a consultant that walks us through that. We need an environmental professional that can identify these properties and then help us get through the testing process. So that's all coming up.
Okay. Our automated fire dispatching, we said that this will help streamline the process a little bit and make things a little bit more consistent with the way things are dispatched.
Yeah, so that is in the works right now. So and keep in mind that dispatch center is a joint city-county operation. So the contract for this was actually just approved at one of the joint meetings recently. So it's moving forward. It will take several months to build that system out, and all those things have to happen before it's actually implemented. So I'm hoping by next summer, maybe it's in place, something like that. But what happens there is, as a 911 call is received, it allows the dispatcher to enter that data, and that computer automatically pushes that run out to the responders and gives them the information while the dispatcher is still gathering information and putting stuff in. So it can really shave some valuable time off to getting that dispatch out to the responders, where now the dispatcher is still taking all that and can't talk and push it out to the responder until he or she gets enough information. So this is a big leap forward. It's done in many of the counties around us, so we're excited to see it happen here. But there's several things that have to be in place for it to work. It also gives the responder the information the exact same way every single time,
Right.
which, as a former responder, I'll tell you, is very important. You key into the way that's presented, and if it's presented in a different order every time, it makes it kind of tough. So it will be the exact same way, the exact same voice.
Yeah.
And it's a computer voice, so there's no fluctuation, right? I mean, and that may be good or bad, but it's very consistent, and it's really a direction we need to head. So we're working on that. Sherry Hill, the dispatch director, is working on getting it implemented, and the city and the county are both behind it. And I think will really help us shave some time off of dispatch moving forward in the future. So stay tuned for that.
Great. And we have a downtown maintenance position that we will be needing to fill.
We'll be filling that soon. So you may have read Larry Hunt, who worked for the street department, retired after 45 years with the city.
Wow.
He was our longest serving employee at the time. So congratulations, Larry. But he had been cleaning the downtown for many, many years, and he's decided to hang it up, and I don't blame him. He wants to be downtown cleaning streets and in the snow or whatever. He was out there every day.
Hopefully someone does.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So we're going to change this position. So this was through the street department, and we're going to make it more a part of, out of City Hall. But there will be a full-time person in the downtown area focused extensively on the downtown. So, not only sweeping where we need and cleaning things up, but the flowers get watered and the weeds get pulled and the curb and all those things to keep our downtown looking nice. We're working on that job description right now. It's about ready. We'll probably start this position sometime after the first of the year. So we'll push it out as we start looking for somebody to fill that, but be a full-time person just focused on keeping our downtown clean and looking nice.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So if you are interested or somebody, send them our way.
Send them our way. Yep.
Yes. Well, we have made it through the list. Is there anything else that either of you want to add?
I don't think so.
We just have a few things going on.
Yeah,
right?
there's a little bit happening, and it's all good.
It is.
Some of these things are really moving forward, and as we get things off the list, we'll add things. But we have a list of things.
Yes.
Out there, so
yeah.
It's not like we're going to get bored.
Yes.
There are several things, though, that we've been talking about for months and months and months and years in some cases. So hopefully some of those are about to fall
We
off.
got rid of the fountain off of here,
right.
and some of those things. We used to talk about Pike Place all the time,
Yeah.
and all those things are done. So, yep.
Awesome. Well, as always, if there are things that you are hearing about in this general update or hearing about in town and you want to know more information about it and you think that it would be a great podcast topic, let us know. We want to know what you want to hear about. And don't forget, you can check out Yodel, our community calendar and newsfeed for all things happening right here in Crawfordsville and Montgomery County. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you aren't already, follow us on Facebook at City of Crawfordsville Official, on Twitter at City of Seaville, and on Instagram at City of Crawfordsville. We hope you have a wonderful day and can't wait for you to join us next week.